Look, I know I've got to set those profile picture on both YouTube and Discord. I know I've got that little picture of Sethos in the corner of all my videos. And I know I just made an hour-long video saying he has the coolest kit in Genshin. But would you believe me if I said Emilie is my favorite character? I don't really know what place would be appropriate for the start of this video, so I guess I'm just going here. The fountain almost as pretty as Emilie is. Hello! So, to some of you who are newer here, it may actually be a surprise to you that I really love Emilie, because I definitely don't talk about her nearly as much as I used to, although I do very much still use her the same amount. My first video ever on this channel was an Emilie video. It more or less is a 101 style, just much lower production value and much less thorough. And before we get started, I want to clear up the one massive misconception about Emilie that I see all of the time. Emilie is not a burning support. She is a burning DPS. Emilie does not buff burning. Burning buffs Emilie. You don't build her with EM, she's all attack scaling. She is an off-field damage dealer. I'm going to get more into this later, but Nahida is more of a burning support than Emilie is. Also, one last little disclaimer, I guess. This video is going to be very full of bias. I'm going to talk a lot about how good Emilie is, and that is in relation to a lot of the characters that I enjoy and play. Emilie is a well-balanced unit in a poorly balanced game. You can see by my character archive, I am not the biggest fan of the direction that character kit design has been going, because a lot of recent characters have just had their weaknesses designed out. They're all upside. I don't like that, so I don't play these characters. Emilie is not one of those characters. She has strengths and she has weaknesses. She is absolutely on the higher end of characters with strengths and weaknesses, and that's why I talk so highly about her. Because out of the more balanced characters that I play, she's absolutely one of the best ones. So I'm gonna keep saying she's great, she's one of the best units on my account, but that's because I have avoided pulling for the less balanced units, which is probably not the most relatable thing. Anyways, now that I've already dragged this intro out longer than it probably should have been, let's get into the kit. She is one of those units whose normal attacks don't really matter that much. I will talk about them a little bit later. There's a reason why I have them at level 6. It's not just because she's Emilie and she deserves it, mostly. But that's not the only reason. They're pretty unnoteworthy physical attacks. The only cool thing is she has her own special charge attack animation, pretty similar to Escoffier's. Although Emilie's cooler because she did it first. The burning stuff starts and also ends when it comes to her skill. By pressing her E, she'll deploy this little lantern, does some AoE damage, and then it shoots out these slow, low damage little bolts. By triggering burning, we can see these little flowers on the ground. These are called scents. Well, the lantern's gone now, but what these do, the lantern will spawn at level 1, and by collecting 2 of these flowers, it will upgrade to level 2, and it will start shooting faster, stronger attacks. Let's just check the scaling. The level 1 attack damage is 70% with a crown skill. The level 2 attack damage is 150 twice, effectively 300 damage. So by not triggering burning, Emilie is going to lose over 75% of her damage, and all she does is damage. It's not all she does, that's what I'm going to go into later, but I think that's just the perfect way to illustrate why Emilie always needs burning in her teams. She is there to do damage, and she loses almost all of her damage if you don't trigger burning. And you can see it's higher level when it has... oh, okay, it's gone. The level 1 version has no bulbs around it. Each scent collected gives it 2 extra bulbs, so the level 2 version will have 4 bulbs. Also, just a little note, if you have a level 2 skill out and you use her skill again to place her lantern, because the duration is longer than the cooldown, it will reset to level 1, and from there it takes a little bit more time to upgrade. Now, it's not necessary to be constantly triggering burning. If the case does not collect any scents for 8 seconds while it's on field, it will go back to level 1. So as long as you're triggering burning at least once every 8 seconds, she'll maintain the higher damage version of her skill. But that is the bare minimum, and her ascension passives give her incentive to trigger burning more often. I'm going to start with the simpler of the two, which is her A4. She just gets straight up damage bonus against burning enemies. And this buff does scale off of her attacks, so it does make attack percent a bit more of a valuable stat on her. Also, on a related note, attack percent is just a better stat for her in general, because she's an off-fielder. She's not getting buffed by Iansan, she's not getting buffed by Bennett, so she doesn't get so oversaturated with attack in the first place. The more complicated one is Lingering Fragrance, which we can see pretty easily in-game. The lantern can continue to collect scents when it's level 2. After collecting one, it'll gain this little sprite around it, and after collecting a second, it will launch that sprite and do a big instance of damage. You can see my tick's 34k. That is a Clear Dew Cologne, does 600% of her attack, and the Ascension passive points out that it is not considered elemental skill damage. For the most part, all that means is you shouldn't be using Golden Troop on her. Even though she is an off-field skill DPS, this passive makes up about a third of her damage. I'll talk about gear more after the kit, but just know Golden Troop isn't that great of an option on her. Not useless, but it shouldn't be a priority. Back to my point, the minimum amount of burning that she needs is to at least generate 2 cents at the beginning of the rotation so she can upgrade her skill to level 2 and start dealing real damage. Then after that, all you need is 1 cent every 8 seconds. These two passives give her more damage the more burning is triggered, because she'll deal more damage to burning enemies, and if you're burning more, you'll generate more scents and generate more Clear Dew Colognes. So this just kind of sounds like, oh, if she gets damage from burning, why would you not want to be triggering burning as much as you can? I kind of just want to get through her kit for the time being. I'll talk a little bit more about this when I get to the team segment, but essentially because her kit works like this, because she isn't doing damage through the burning reaction, she just needs the burning damage to happen occasionally. She doesn't care about what aura is on the enemy to do her damage. And that means you can use the burning aura to enable other reactions, like vape, like melt, like overload. And reactions gain you more damage, so you get a bit of a push and pull. She has full burning teams where she gets a lot of uptime on this damage percent passive, and she generates a lot of scents and shoots out a lot of Clear Dew Colognes, and she has teams that use the burning to react, and she does less damage, still a lot, just a little bit less, but she enables another unit to do more damage. Anyways, that's enough about the skill. Let's talk about the burst, although we're just going to talk more about the skill. What this does, she drops these beams. They drop every 0.3 seconds, but one opponent can only be the target of the beam every 0.7 seconds. So if you're fighting something in single target, 1 will drop on the enemy, and then 2 will drop in random places, which they can by random chance hit the enemy, but in general only 1 out of these 3 beams will hit the same enemy. It becomes much better in AoE. I can probably show that off. I have a domain. Not only can the burst target multiple enemies and spread out its damage more evenly, but if enemies stand close enough to each other, then the beams can hit multiple enemies. So if 3 enemies are all standing directly next to each other, you can have a continuous rain of those beams coming down on her, with every single one launched hitting every single enemy. So in short, it's much more effective in AoE. I haven't even gotten on to the second and probably more important thing that it does. It will always deploy her skill right in front of her, but if her skill is at level 2, it will maintain its level and refresh its duration. Of course, compared to her skill, which will reset its level. So that's a pretty good burst, right? It does a fair bit of damage, it refreshes her skill, and it removes a little bit of her downtime by making it so your skill doesn't have to upgrade itself again. So you want to build enough energy so you never have to use skill and you can only use burst, right? Not exactly. Yes, she does have a fairly low cost burst, but her energy generation is kind of terrible. She generates 1 dendro particle every other hit, which is a decent amount of particles over your rotation, but the fact that she's an off-fielder and she's going to be catching all of those particles while she's off-field make her energy needs pretty high. I'd say Emilie's burst situation is very, very similar to Yanfei's burst situation. She does fundamentally have a good burst that you would want to use every rotation if you could, but unlike someone like Cyno, Her burst isn't all of her damage. She doesn't do nothing if she doesn't have it. Building more ER means building less damaging stats, and by building enough ER on her to burst every rotation, you'll lose more damage than the damage you gained by bursting every rotation. So you just shouldn't do it unless you have her signature. Fun little segue into her gear. I mean, I don't have her signature, so I actually need to open the archive for this. Emilie's signature is easily one of the best in the game, at least for the purposes of signature weapons, which is increasing the damage or the utility of a character that you like. As a general stat stick, it's not all that great, there are definitely better ones, but for the character that it was designed for, Luminous does a ton. Not only does it just give the good stats that a 5-star gives, it's a 608 base attack, 33.1% crit rate substat, with a bit more attack and damage percent in the passive, but the passive also generates flat energy on her, enough that it becomes reasonable to build enough ER to burst every rotation. So not only do you get the good stats that a signature weapon gives, you get the ability to burst every rotation. That gives you both the damage of the burst itself, and it removes the downtime that it takes her skill to upgrade. Now, this isn't to say that you need this weapon for Emilie to be good. Obviously, I don't have it. She's still a fantastic character without her burst, and as I'm right about to get into, there are situations where you can burst with her every rotation without her signature. This team actually being one of them. This is a team that gets a lot of external particle generation. I have Cyno, well, he's on a broken set right now, but he's on Thundering Fury. He does a lot of skill spam. Fischl generates a lot of energy. Electro Resonance gives me more particles. Usually I'm running Toma on Fav. I don't know what happened, what is going on. He's usually on Fav. All these things together give my Emilie enough energy to burst every rotation on this 145 build. This is also something I talk about a lot in my streams. I find 145 is a very nice sweet spot for her, where if I am in a team that generates a lot of external particles, she can get her burst every rotation. But if I'm running another team, like say Risley Melt, that doesn't generate nearly as many, she doesn't get her burst every rotation, but she's not giving up so many offensive stats that her damage is nerfed into the ground. Around 140, 145 is just a nice universal amount, where in some teams I can burst every rotation, and in the teams where I can't burst every rotation, I'm not giving up so much.
Also, kinich teams apply because kinich generates a lot of dendro particles for her.
Conveniently, this is also about the max amount that she'll ever need with her signature. And also, yes, her signature alone does not solve her energy needs. It just makes them far more achievable. You're still going to need a few substats, maybe more around 120% rather than 140. But you know, that's very achievable even on just one artifact. Anyways, let's talk about some other weapons. This right here, R5 Deathmatch. This is her best 4-star weapon. She doesn't really have great free-to-play options. The amount of good attack scaling polearms in this game is pretty miserable. The two best ones are event weapons. Missive Windspear is a few years old at this point, but if you have it, it's pretty good, just gives a ton of attack. Elemental Mastery isn't very useful, that's why it's not a great weapon, it's just okay. But it has a decent base attack and gives a lot of stats that she cares about. The Torch is probably the one that more people have. Far more recent event weapon. Has a high base attack, has a nice chunk of energy recharge as a substat, so you'll be able to build enough ER to burst every rotation in certain teams. And 40% attack on the passive. Again, just good stats. Nothing to complain about. Although I'm just remembering now, there's the condition that you have to use an elemental skill to get this buff, which in your first rotation, that's not really an issue. But if you are bursting every rotation, it's also not an issue. I just have to tell you a secret. While her burst is active, her skill doesn't redeploy her lantern. So you can use it again just for an additional little instance of damage, and you'll keep your level 2 skill. That also, you know, the reason I started talking about this, can be used to activate the passive on the Torch. Fav is technically an option. It's a high base attack, which is nice, but the passive doesn't give any offensive stats. Does generate some energy up front, so you can use this to burst every rotation on her, but in general, you're gonna have a better time using a weapon that gives you some offensive stats because her burst isn't everything. She doesn't need it to deal damage. Fav is functional. I wouldn't recommend it. Let me see. Let me make sure there aren't any 4 stars I'm forgetting. She doesn't want to use a 3-star because of the low base attack. Prospector's Drill is kind of okay. Let me double check the passive because for some reason I remember it like requiring that you be healed. High base attack, attack percent substat. It gives damage percent and attack percent through its passive, but the passive requires that you be healed. So you're gonna have to slot a healer into your team to activate its passive, and depending on who you replace, it might not be worth the damage loss. But a team that I have actually played a lot is burnvape furina. So in a team like that, where you're going to be running a healer anyways, then Prospector's Drill can be used. The funny little shovel, what is this thing even called? Mountain Bracing Bolt? I'm looking this up. Very, very similar to the torch. High base attack, energy recharge substat, but instead of attack, it gives elemental skill damage bonus. It's a numerically better buff, but as we went over, her Clear Dew Colognes are not considered skill damage, so it won't buff that part of her damage. I haven't calced them, but if I had to make a guess, I would say the torch is probably better, but that is an event weapon, and this, it's a gacha weapon, so you probably don't have it, but you do have a chance to get it. Now let's talk about the two options which, I think unfortunately are the best in Blackcliff and Royal Spear. And actually, I'm going to go with Royal Spear on this one, as insane as it sounds to say. Is it in the shop right now? Can I buy one? It is not in the shop right now. So to be a good weapon, it takes a combination of useful base stats and a useful passive. That's why I went over. Fav isn't great because the passive doesn't give damage stats. I think actually Kitane is something that people might ask about. It does increase elemental skill damage by a tiny, tiny bit, and it does have some energy stuff to maybe get her to burst every rotation. But the fact that the substat isn't doing anything for her hurts. That's the reason why Blackcliff weapons are so bad, is because they essentially don't have a passive. It requires you to kill an enemy to get the attack percent buff, and you know, in the modern landscape of every piece of endgame content being single target bosses, that just throws this right out the window. Even in modes where you do fight multiple waves of enemies, Emilie has some problems with this because the character equipping it needs to be on field to get the buff, and they also need to be the one that land the killing blow. Emilie is an off-field DPS, so she doesn't meet the first condition, and most often there's someone else on field that is doing stronger burst damage that is more likely to get the final hit. So even if it did trigger off field, she wouldn't be able to get it reliably. So yeah, it does have a big juicy crit damage substat, but the passive doing effectively nothing makes it so much worse.
And then I forgot to talk about Royal Spear. High base stat, attack percent substat, very unreliable passive, but it is still usable. So out of her free-to-play options, this is the best you can do, but you're probably still not happy about it.
I think that's all the 4 stars, so let's move on to the 5 stars. There are a few good stat sticks like Primordial Jadewing here. Like Blackcliff, you need to be on field for this passive to take place. So we have another dead passive, it's only the base stats. And it being a 5-star with higher base stats lets it get away with not having a passive, essentially. And it's still a decent weapon on her. It beats out most 4 stars, but I'm using Deathmatch. At higher fines, Deathmatch, with its actual useful passive, beats out 5-star stat sticks that don't have passives. Let's take a look at a few other weapons. I actually probably shouldn't have skipped over Engulfing Lightning. I guess it's technically a thing that you can do. I should address this. There are weird burst build Emilies that you can do, because it still does pretty good damage on its own. You are better off building a more traditional skill damage build with her, but you can use something like Engulfing or the Catch. I've seen, oh, no, sorry, Seven Son. Not right now. But I have seen, like, goofy emblem builds on Emilie that burst as often as they can, because it's also, you know, it does good damage and it's on a pretty low cooldown. It's 12.5 seconds, I believe. Maybe 13? Maybe 13? It's 13.5, yep. So that's like a thing that you can do. I don't do it, but if you want to do funny burst build Emilie, then Engulfing or Catch works. Skyward Spine is pretty similar to Primordial Jadewing Spear. It actually does have a bit of a useful passive. Let me look up to make sure. Same high base attack, but ER substat, not the most useful on her. Oh, it technically does have a passive. It's just not a very useful one. 8% crit rate, normal attack speed, and then an extra damaging effect when you hit a normal charge attack. So pretty much on Emilie, it's just 8% crit rate. All right, so never mind. Primordial Jadewing Spear is definitely better, but Skyward Spine is usable if you don't have it. Are you on my fucking friends list? No, get out of here, dude. Oh, rest in peace. Vortex Vanquisher is an attack stat stick. Staff of Homa is a crit and attack stat stick. Calamity is another attack stat stick that gives some damage percent. Staff of
Scarlet Sands
is another crit stat stick, but it has a lower base attack. So you're probably going to want to use one of these other ones. Maybe not Vortex Vanquisher first, but definitely Homa, definitely Calamity Queller. High base attack stat stick, high base attack stat stick. They're all usable, they're all roughly similar. R5 Deathmatch beats out most of them, if not all of them, but there isn't really a bad 5-star polearm for her. Alright, okay, so let's go revive her so we can look at her artifacts. I mentioned it before, but I'm gonna say it again. Just don't use Golden Troop. Not only does she deal reasonable damage with her burst, but, you know, Clear 2 Cologne's not considered skill damage, so just don't make that mistake. She essentially has two options, and I've filtered them both right here. Reverie obviously pulls ahead if you have another unit holding Deepwood on your team, because she can benefit from the 30% res shred passive without having to be the one that applies it. In that case, Reverie is 18% more attack than Deepwood and 35% more damage, because it gives a max of 50% and the 2 piece of Deepwood gives 15% enter damage bonus. That being said, I pretty much permanently keep my Emilie on Deepwood. Even though Reverie sheets better, number one, that requires you to have farmed Reverie, and I mean, is it obvious that I haven't done that? My Reverie pieces are not leveled. I've only strongboxed it a tiny bit. Oh, that's an HP sans. I probably should have a Reverie set for as much as I love Emilie, but it also comes down to the fact that my Deepwood is kind of insane. I mean, look at this ratio. Hefty chunk of ER for those teams that can burst every rotation. Pretty solid crit stats, if I do say so myself. And a nice extra chunk of attack percent. From the artifacts, I'm getting 849. I spent most of the year of Sumeru in the Deepwood domain, and I think that shows. Because now I have an Emilie build that has a pretty solid balance of stats. And it would take a lot of investment in Reverie to get something to match it. Maybe I should start farming it, because I don't have much else good to farm now. Anyways, for my second point, if you have Reverie on her, that means you are always going to have someone else on Deepwood. That is a lot of shifting artifacts around, because Reverie isn't really worth it unless you have someone else holding Deepwood on your team. You're always going to have to shift around artifacts whenever you want to do an Emilie team and make sure someone who can hold Deepwood is holding it. That's annoying. That's a lot of work. I want to avoid that. I keep my Emilie on Deepwood, and I always know that someone in the team is shredding res. It's not optimal, but it saves me a lot of headaches. Guess I should also talk about early constellations at least. I figure the later constellations, if you're getting C3 and further, you're probably just going to go to C6, and you don't really care how good they are. You just like Emilie. And I can't fault you for that, especially because I talked about the weapon a decent amount. I think it's a good idea to talk about how her first two constellations are for early investment. Simplest way to put it, C1 is just a flat out 20% damage bonus on everything except her burst, and you do get additional sense, which doesn't matter a ton. This can lead to more Clear 2 Colognes. I think for the most part, this is better in some of the weirder, non-pure burning teams, because her immediately generating 2 cents as soon as the fight starts makes it so that it's not as like weird RNG. There are some teams I'm going to show off where you can have difficulties generating 2 cents and upgrading your skill to level 2. This constellation throws that out of the window. As long as you trigger burning once for even a single second, you will get a level 2 skill. And then the extra sense, again, don't do a ton. More Clear 2 Colognes, little more application, but not the most important. As for raw damage, and probably for gameplay feel, if you're going for one investment thing on Emilie, either C1 or R1, go R1. C2 just gives her perma Deepwood. Of course, if you have C2, then ignore everything I said about Deepwood. Reverie is always better. You should just go farm Reverie. This is a pretty big damage boost, and if you're going for 2 investment things, which can be either R2 of her weapon, C1 R1 or C2, then go C2. So if you're choosing between C1 or R1, go R1. If you're choosing between C2, R1 C1, or R2, go C2. Oh, I also didn't talk about why I leveled her normals. This is recorded after, because I figured I should go back and talk about constellations. I guess the guy himself is right here. I didn't really talk about Emilie as an on-fielder, so I guess I'll give it quick little lip service right now. Because again, I don't do it very much. It is certainly a thing that she can do, and that's why I leveled my normals. Because with Bennett C6, with that Pyro Infusion, Emilie can become her own pyro application. You can onfield her, you can use the pyro normal attacks to get burning up time. And of course then she gets Bennett's attack buff, and she's an attack scaling unit, she'll just do a lot more damage. Not as much as a dedicated onfielder, but she's still pretty solid. There are teams like this air fryer one that I just recorded, where maybe that's actually what you want to do. I might swap Yanfei out to do, like, I don't know, scroll kinich. I was thinking, PMC for that scroll buff, but it's going to be really inconsistent because Pyro on the Burning Aura doesn't trigger burning. It's only Dendro on Burning Aura that triggers burning, so he would not easily be able to get that 40 damage bonus. So yeah, maybe I want to play some scroll kinich, so I can play Emilie as an onfielder. Actually, I probably should just do Yansan now that I think of it. Yeah, you know what? Why not? This will go at the end of the video. Why don't I just Giga Buff Emilie? Hypercarry Emilie. Hypercarry Air Fryer Emilie. This is the content that you get here. This video is going to be such a nightmare to edit. Part of this segment is going to go at the beginning. Part of this segment is going to go at the end. But whatever. This is what needs to happen. Alright, I think that is it for gear and her kit. Oh, actually, wait, no, about her kit. I usually don't go over exploration passives, but this one is actually pretty important. Your characters can take damage from burning reactions that they've triggered, and in a lot of situations it can necessitate a defensive unit. Not with Emilie. 85% resist against any burning damage that goes on. Nice little quality of life thing. Anyways, before I get into a few more of the I guess less conventional Emilie teams, I do want to definitely take a moment to talk about kinich teams. I mean, it probably goes without saying for how long this video is probably going to be, but Emilie is very good in non-kinich teams. These aren't the only teams that she has. And while I do enjoy playing kinich, these are probably some of my least favorite Emilie teams overall, because I like using burning to enable other reactions, where it's just kind of doing Dendro damage. There's not a ton of dynamics going on. Let me swap out to my favorite kinich team here, which is Boop and Boop. This is my personal favorite because it frees kinich up from Bennett's Circle Impact, which it does feel pretty bad on him. It also frees up Bennett for the other side of Abyss, or Stygian Onslaught, I guess, another chamber in Stygian Onslaught. And while Yansan doesn't heal nearly as much as Bennett, and she kinda can't be your only defensive unit, I bring in Dea, who has additional defensive utility, and between the two of them, her damage resistance and her healing, I can get hit a few times without being punished too badly. Anyways, about Emilie's slot herself, I mean, this is the Emilie video, so if you're watching it, I expect that you have her, but I just need to say this. For my own sanity, if you don't have Emilie, do not run a second Dendro unit in your kinich teams. I mean, I can kind of do that the other way around as well. If you're running a team that has Emilie in it, you probably don't want other Dendro units. That one is a little more case by case, but if you have kinich and no Emilie, I am just saying right now, it is a hard rule. Do not run a Dendro unit in your kinich teams if it is not Emilie. Because as mentioned before, Emilie is not a burning support. She's not bringing any sort of buffs that other Dendro units could also potentially bring. She is just dealing damage. Other Dendro units pretty heavily rely on Electro to deal their damage. So in a team that tries its best to get high burning uptime and keep a Pyro Aura on, those other Dendro units are just not going to be dealing damage. As a specific example, I've been asked, oh really? I have a C2 Nahida. I also shouldn't run her in kinich teams? No! Doesn't matter how many constellations Nahida has, she is never going to be a good unit in burning teams. The reason Emilie is there is for damage. She's not there for the Dendro resonance, she's not there to generate extra energy, she just does damage on her own. Emilie and kinich don't really have much direct synergy at all, they're just both Dendro units that have the same conditions to dealing damage. They both ask that the enemy be burning. So yeah, little rant over. Kinich doesn't care about having a second Dendro unless it's Emilie. And even then, he doesn't really care. They just both happen to do the same thing. So yeah, these teams, they're fun to play. In general, I don't think there's all too much to talk about. Because yeah, there's not a lot of interaction. It's just two units that can deal a lot of damage, dealing a lot of damage. Okay, it is the day after recording. And while I was editing this video together, I realized I want to do a quick kinich combo interlude. because I am not going to get the chance to do this otherwise. I am not going to make a Kinich video. Sorry, Kinich likers, I also like him. He just is not that interesting of a unit in team building. So what better of an opportunity than the Emilie video, because I assume a lot of Emilie likers will also like Kinich. This will be short, I promise. I just really need to dispel the myth that getting 5 cannons on Kinich is difficult. You don't need to do short holds, you don't need to have good timing, you don't even really need burst. So I'm gonna do it right here, right now, emerge, and teach the masses. And you'll also get the benefit of seeing my Kinich rotation. Emilie into Eonson.
Target acquired.
5 cannons, easy. For the first cannon, you do 2 slides, pretty normal, but for every cannon after that, you just do 1 slide. Kinich has this passive where every time an enemy takes burning damage, his Night Soul bar goes up. So if you simply wait, don't do another slide, that passive will trigger and you'll get a cannon off of doing 1 slide. To make sure you're getting your cannons on time, just mash E or whatever your skill button is. So there's your Kinich combo. Slide, slide, cannon, slide, cannon, slide, cannon, slide, cannon, slide, cannon. I've found that you don't even really need to go for blind spots. Oh, I didn't get it there. It can be a tiny bit inconsistent, but I definitely say that I get it more often than I don't. Emilie actually does help a little bit here because her Dendro application ensures higher burning uptime, so Kinich's burning passive triggers more frequently. Wow, who would have known? A tip about Emilie in a video about Emilie. Anyways, yeah, 5 cannons, very, very easy. If you play Kinich, please learn to do them. They are not difficult. I guess we're just, moving swiftly on. I think I want to start out with this team, which is the one that I actually pulled Emilie for. I think this one best highlights how burning can be used as a reaction. Everyone geared, I assume. Oh, you're not. So there is, of course, just the most basic thing, that burning acts as a pyro aura and you can use it to get reactions. There's a little bit more to it. Specifically when it comes to melt and vape, burning makes getting those reactions a lot more consistent. The first thing it does, and this is more for melt than it is for vape, but it makes the pyro aura on the enemy stronger. Essentially, what burning does as a reaction, it does, you know, that really, really tiny bit of damage over time, which really is not what you should be focusing on. It takes whatever dendro is on the enemy and slowly converts it into pyro. You can see here, with just 1 instance of pyro application, actually it's better to be illustrated here, Emilie can keep applying dendro and continually triggering burning without applying any more pyro. This essentially has the effect of giving pyro offfielders stronger application. They apply the base amount of pyro that they would anyways, and Emilie converts some of her dendro into more pyro. The word I always use is she technically doesn't apply any pyro herself, but she supplements pyro application and makes it stronger. Just to compare, just charge attack spamming on Wriothesley, he will quickly overtake with cryo and stop melting. Now if we have
Burning
going on, he occasionally loses the aura, but it's up for far more time. The second thing that it does, which helps with both vape and melt, is it makes it a lot easier to control your aura and always have a pyro aura on your enemies. Let's swap out here. Do Yanfei here. I think she is going to be the best to illustrate this with. For the cases of both melt and vape, if you mess up and you have too much either hydro or cryo, and you eventually overtake, you will leave an aura on the enemy. And to remove that aura, you will need to apply pyro multiple times. In the case of cryo, you need to apply it once to remove it, and a second time, oh, okay, well, just whiff your skill completely. Once to remove it, and a second time to reapply and get a pyro aura so that your cryo character can continue to melt. In the case of hydro, it's even worse, because it takes multiple pyro applications to even remove the hydro in the first place, so you'll need to apply pyro 3 times to regain an aura. So how does burning help with this? In the case of cryo, dendro and cryo auras can exist at the same time on an enemy, and if you apply pyro on one of those enemies, it will trigger a melt and a burning, and you will immediately regain your pyro aura, only requiring 1 application. And as for hydro, you'll just trigger a bloom and probably leave dendro on the enemy, in which case, you just hit with pyro and start burning. So if you have too much cryo or too much hydro, burning will make it so that you can very easily regain your pyro aura and start reacting off of it again. This is actually where I think I'm going to come back to Nahida about how she is a better burning support than Emilie, because as I mentioned, what burning does is it takes dendro and it converts it into pyro. Emilie's application is fine. It's certainly not the best. I believe she has standard ICD on her skill, so 1 unit every 3 hits. And her Clear Dew colognes have no ICD, so depending on how many of those you're generating, you can get some extra application. It's not really anything special. Nahida's skill hits fairly frequently, and it applies 1.5 units. This application is strong enough that you don't need an off-field pyro to re-trigger the burning aura just in case you lose it. Her dendro application is strong enough to keep a burning aura going even if you are using that burning aura to melt. She also, has that whole EM buff thing in her burst, and if you're using melt, then you gain damage from EM. She's still not a dedicated burning support, but because she can allow for consistent melts to be done off of just 1 application of pyro, and she also buffs EM, which melt DPSs want, I would say that she is a stronger burning support. Emilie doesn't do any supportive stuff, and her application is worse, so you generally do need an off-field pyro unit, but Emilie's damage far outweighs the buffs that Nahida can give, or the space you can save in a team by not having an off-field pyro. Anyways, back to team building. The only unit that does enough pyro application to keep wrio melting by herself is Xiangling, so I guess a more traditional Wriothesley melt team, which I actually do play this a lot, but it looks like this. By using Emilie and getting her supplemental application, I can afford to use a unit who has lower application. Like maybe if I needed a defensive unit, I could run Dea, and I have run this team in the past. Or I could do what I do now, and run Pyro Traveler on Scroll, and give damage bonus to both Wriothesley and Emilie. You could also do this with Mawika if you have her, and she's probably a little bit less of a headache, but I'm not going to pull Mawika to be a minor upgrade in this team, because I sure would not play her as a carry. I am fine with Pyro Traveler, thank you very much. This kind of relates to what I said before. With Cryo and Dendro being able to exist on the enemy at once, you can trigger both reactions, and I haven't done this in so long, it feels so nostalgic. With Run Reaction, I can get damage bonuses for Dendro and for Cryo. And then I can boop. Could you please get over here? You actually see an instance there where I lost my Pyro Aura for a second. Because, PMC's application is not the best. But because I'm using Burning, I was able to get it back really quickly. But yeah, this sort of structure is probably what just most of the rest of the video is going to be. I can use the ways that Burning affects auras and her general flexibility as a damage dealer to allow for reactions on my other units, while she just does a ton of damage off field without asking any questions. Maybe I'm going to sound a little bit insane here, but in all honesty, I think Emilie has a lot in common with Furina's core design. They differ in the fact that Furina divides her power into doing both damage and buffing, whereas Emilie just stacks it all into damage. But they have a similar thing going on with how they interact with other units. They both have a base requirement to do whatever they do. Emilie needs a pyro unit to trigger burning, and Furina needs a healer, both to stack damage percent and to be able to drain HP from her party members to deal damage. But neither of those requirements is a flat one-note thing. You don't always bring a full party healer who stacks fanfare really quickly in Furina teams. There are units like Shilonen and Bennett. While they have worse healing, it's single target, and Bennett has a limit, they do a lot of other things for your team that make it worth the loss in fanfare. I mean, Escoffier kind of throws that out the window, but, you know, one of the many reasons that I don't really like her. Before Escoffier, there was a pretty clear balance when it came to healers. The ones that had big full party healing that stack fanfare a lot more quickly would do a lot less other stuff. Like Baiju just had a little bit of Dendro application. Shanyun, giving access to plunge and buffing plunge isn't the greatest thing in the world. I mean, Sijuin is the perfect example. She is pretty much a dedicated Furina support, and she's pretty solid as a dedicated Furina support. But outside of those contexts, when her healing doesn't get converted into damage, she is, she's a little sad. But then those other examples, Shilonen and Bennett, have worse healing and stack fanfare slower, but Shilonen brings res shred and damage %. Bennett is freaking Bennett. He gives all his stupid attack buffs. There is texture to this requirement. It's not just, oh, you bring a healer and then it's set. That's the mechanic done with. It makes you rotate in different ways. It makes you think about who you want to bring or who might be more useful in this scenario. That's why I really don't like Escoffier. I promise this whole video will just be me hating on Escoffier, but I think Emilie is just like a way better done version of Escoffier. Because she does res shred and damage and full party healing, you're not giving up anything with Escoffier. Escoffier is so boring that she makes Furina more boring. How do you even do that? Anyways, back to Emilie. She does a very, very similar thing when it comes to burning. She requires that you have at least some burning, enough to level your skill up to level 2, and then once every 8 seconds to keep your skill at level 2. But that's it. That's the bare minimum. If you want to use that burning to trigger reactions on other units, you can, and she'll still keep doing solid damage. If you don't do that and you put her in a more dedicated burning team, which is pretty much just a kinich team, then you're not getting the bonus that triggering reactions gets you, but she just gets more inherent damage from her passive talents. She is dynamic. You can put her in different teams, use different burning triggers, and do different things with her burning.
And I got distracted and forgot to mention how she lifts up units that have worse pyro application in the same way that Furina lifts up healers. I'm not insane. I don't think she's as good as Furina. I just think they have a lot of similar stuff going on.
I love Emilie. I don't know if you guys knew that. I really, really love Emilie. I think this is like the best unit design in the game. And she's pretty too. Anyways. Let's look at a few other teams. Dig some up. Oh, here's one. Only got to replace one unit here. This is one that I actually tend to wait until later in the showcase to show it off, but it caught my eye, so we're doing it now. It's been a while since I've done this one, but this used to be one of my favorites. Played it a little bit in Abyss, but it's been a while. I didn't even check if Furina is on the right stuff, and I don't think she is. But you'll be fine, right, girl? Probably. We'll see. We'll see if you're fine. In any case, this is the Furina burnvape team. It's meant to get big, silly numbers on Furina. My gut tells me go Instructor Cloud Retainer. I don't know if I can get away with that. I think that's just a little too scuffed. I'm just gonna stay on VV. This is not a damage showcase. Just I don't know, pretend the numbers are higher. Maybe I could just like flip my order of things and actually get a Hydro Swirl here. Okay. I don't think I really played that right, but that could have gone better. I also used to use Baiju instead of Shanyun, but I think Shanyun is just going to be more fun because I get to do plunge stuff. They basically do the same thing, kind of. Let's do this first. Oh, girl, yeah. All right, well, that's just because I didn't do a full rotation, so she should have enough energy normally. Here we go, real rotation now. That works. This is essentially, it's a dual DPS. It's not really a triple DPS. Hu Tao isn't doing a whole lot here. This is just a team where Emilie does a lot of damage. Furina also does a lot of damage. They're both benefiting from Furina's damage % buffs. And Hu Tao on field, she applies a lot of pyro. So she keeps the burning aura up, lets Emilie get her damage, and then Furina vapes off of it, and she gets big funny numbers. I've seen upwards of probably 70k in this team, and my Furina isn't even particularly that well built for vape. I think way higher is easily achievable. Actually, this rotation is possible. I kind of like this, because Emilie's application is kind of bad. The issue here is that her skill does get upgraded a little bit late. But yeah, in any case, it applies like not enough Dendro to where you can actually get a Hydro Aura going and swirl it. Hu Tao grabs some Virgins, and then she just starts applying Pyro for Furina to vape off of. Come on, let's see it. 46k, that's reasonable. I could also maybe, if I wanted to swap to Festering Desire, I'd have to go to a ER Sands, so I don't really think it's all that worth it. This is a silly, goofy team. Has two nice, pretty ladies doing a lot of damage, so what's there to complain about? And Hu Tao's also there. I just like Hu Tao. She's silly, she's fun. The Baiju version of this is absolutely easy to get burning going. Surprise, surprise. I'm not seeing so many big numbers. You kind of have to get lucky. Furina's application is a little all over the place. I mean, you know, 46k still isn't anything to scoff at. Probably not that much to say. It's been a while since I played it, but it's still fun. Oh, actually, no, there is a lot to say about it because the carry is really flexible. Because this isn't a character that deals much damage, you can kind of just go with whoever has a lot of pyro application. Newest to that crowd is Pyro MC, which is notable because he can hold scroll, do a little bit of buffing, mostly just for Emilie, but this is the Emilie 101, so you're not going to complain about him not buffing Furina. Actually, you know what? No. I was getting a Hydro Aura pretty consistently, so he probably can buff Furina too. I could just check that out. It's always, yeah, it's a little inconsistent on the lantern, which is probably the biggest issue here, and with vape teams in general. I didn't even check. I mean, I assume I got hydro damage, ender damage, yeah. It can be a bit of an issue with vape teams in general. Oh, okay, didn't die. Almost did. But especially ones with weird setups like this. I was experimenting with rotations. It might be easier to do Furina into Shanyun and then Emilie into your Pyro unit, so you can immediately set Dendro on them and then start the burning, and Furina doesn't have time to overtake. Nah. It's still kind of slow. I also have plunges that I've just forgotten about. I think I prefer the Hu Tao version because she just has such strong application. Maybe I should be using more plunges as well, because that's you know, comparing Shanyun to Baiju. Baiju obviously applies more Dendro. It makes it a little easier to maintain a burning aura, but Shanyun can make your on-fielder apply a bit more pyro because plunge attacks have no ICD. Or I don't know, you could just go Yao Yao, maybe? I've also done a variation of this team with Dory as more of a combination Hyperbloom Burgeon type of thing. This one probably has even worse issues getting Emilie skill upgraded, but I like Dory, so I had to shout it out. I had to try it. And I actually have brought this exact team through Abyss. 36 starred with it. Back in the Kinich Abyss, like 2 cycles ago, I think. Anyways, I don't know if I've really ever talked about this before. She's actually a pretty solid option in mono pyro lyney teams because burning still counts as pyro and it still activates Lyney's passive that requires pyro to be on enemies. For Lyney's damage, I'd say you're probably better off with Lanyan, who is my favorite unit in this slot. Brings a big chunky shield, which Lyney is a fan of. She holds VV, she holds TTDS, brings a lot of good buffs. Doesn't sacrifice damage for comfort. But of course, I mean, this is the Emilie video. Emilie is a good option here. Lyney will do a little bit less damage, but she more than makes up for it. You could also drop your second pyro, which is going to be Xiangling, because of course it's going to be Xiangling. You're not dropping Bennett, and throw your Lanyan there. I could do this. I don't really. I guess I don't have to gear people that bad. Don't ask me why Lyney is on a two-piece Pale Flame build. It was possibly a result of the Saluna stream. Who am I to say? Alright, yeah, I am not gonna bother changing her artifacts, because they are DPS Lanyon artifacts. But, it's fine. She still has some attack. And she'll snapshot Bennett buff, so her shield will be plenty big. On a side note, I really love Emilie and Lyney for very similar reasons. Oh shit, I did the wrong rotation. I swapped the Lanyon too early. Well, gotta wait for that to come off cooldown. Let's just go somewhere pretty. I can explain myself. We're both Lyney and Emilie. They require a certain aura to be on the enemy to do their damage. I mean, Emilie doesn't really require the aura. She just requires that burning happens. My point is that to do their damage, neither of them consume the element. It's a very interesting dynamic. I mean, that's the whole conceit of this video, is that you can use the aura to facilitate other reactions. By removing the pyro, you're not nerfing Emilie's damage because she doesn't need it to react off of, she just needs it to upgrade her skill. And once she's done that, then do whatever the hell you want. Lyney is the same way. I've found less to do with him, just as an on-fielder, but conceptually I like the idea that I could do something with him, where I maybe have a, I don't know, an Escoffier off-field doing melts, but because she's not removing the pyro, Lyney can still do all the damage that he wants to do. I don't know, I think it makes sense. Probably shouldn't have dropped this right here. Look at him go. Short-haired blonde Fontanians doing all that work. Maybe the French are okay. This is definitely one of the less interesting ones. I was supposed to Emilie first. Whatever. Because it's more just to say that it functions. If you want to throw your Emilie in a Lyney team, you can do it, and she actually is probably going to be better than Xiangling, at least in single target. Let's get back to the reaction shenanigans. I mean, just recently, I was doing DPS Layla. Her alone, she doesn't apply a ton of cryo, so you don't really have an issue of losing the aura and needing to regain it. But when combined with Shenhe does apply a lot of cryo, so Emilie was helping out to stabilize the auras in that team. I think it's actually Cyno time. Actually, do I still have the team made in the first slot? I probably do. I do. Yeah, this is my favorite Cyno team. I'm just gonna steal everything from Bennett. What we do, that's what we do. Oh, girl. How is your skill up for that long? I'm gonna teleport back so I can talk about the team for a second. This is the first team where Emilie being a Dendro unit actually matters, because we're using her Dendro for Cyno and Fischl to aggravate off of. And this is probably one of the ones that shows her flexibility the best, because she has really, really low burning uptime. Oh, I clicked my middle mouse button accidentally. Toma doesn't apply a lot, and Cyno and Fischl remove it pretty quickly, but as long as we have the occasional burning proc, it still works. And we do have the occasional burning proc. Specifically, just why Emilie is here. I prefer her over Nahida for Cyno. For the most part, I think it's just because I like her. But there is some method to the madness. Emilie's Dendro application works in multi-wave. Nahida's does not. It's attached to the enemy. When the enemy dies, the mark disappears. Cyno has always had the issue of not being able to swap out of his burst. He kills enemies before his burst is over. You would have to swap back to Nahida to reapply the mark and therefore cancel his burst. Emilie does not have that problem. So, I don't know. I'll just give it a run. Run Toma because, I mean, obviously, yeah, we don't have another defensive unit here. And yeah, as noted, this is actually pretty much the only team that isn't a kinich team where Emilie can consistently get her burst every rotation. I don't know if I should find a tougher opponent so I can prove that. I could do it... Oh, I'll just do it against this guy because he has insane resistance. Actually useful for once. I think it'll take a bit for him to go into his second phase. I could also start off doing her burst. Ooh, now I'm remembering another fun tactic. Is... if you're starting off doing her burst instead of her skill, apply pyro first. I need to think for a second. I can't talk about this in real time. Essentially, she can generate sense while her burst is being used. So if you immediately trigger burning when her burst starts, you'd have just enough time to generate 2 sense. And right after her burst is over, we can see... okay, well he's covering it, but the lamp will spawn, and then it will upgrade to level 2. And we can see. Okay, well, didn't get to do another full rotation there, but I promise if I did, she would have had her burst available again. I'll see if I can get 3 rotations one more time. Oh no, now Cyno doesn't have enough energy. Okay, alright, I'm giving up. I'm just starting the whole rotation over again. I could also do this. I think I'm dumb. But again, I was gonna go to Stygian Onslaught, but you start with no energy in that mode. God, it was almost so good for testing. Almost. Suppose I could just do Stygian Onslaught and not, like, do a first rotation, just battery for the first rotation. Oh, I only have 2 minutes to fight him. Oh, this is an issue. And I didn't do my skill that I should have done. Here's where I can prove it. I used my burst. Oh no! Okay, never mind. No. I caught those particles. I thought I was gonna be a liar. And if I didn't, like, spend so long getting my energy up, and I actually rotated better, I actually think I might have been able to do this with this team, which is crazy. Although I guess this is only difficulty 4. And there, she has burst again. Didn't even have to funnel her this time. See, it works. It works. I promise, it works. I did it again. I thought I was done recording the video, and then I immediately remembered a team I forgot. I haven't even moved. I'm in the same place, but it's raining for some reason. I don't know how I forgot about this team, because it was literally the team that I pulled Venti for. It's Air Fryer. It's Air Fryer.
Be sure to make a proper appointment.
We love Air Fryer. Emilie made Air Fryer so much better. Let me do it. Where can I do it? Where's a good AoE domain? This was perfect. I played this team during the, like, 60 guy Abyss, and it was so much fun. I had the time of my life. But before, I mentioned how Emilie's burst is so much better in AoE, because there's a cooldown after it targets a single enemy, but if enemies are really close to each other, then it can target all 3 enemies right next to each other, and hit all 3 enemies with each little beam that it launches. So, of course, who has better grouping than Venti? Oh, he just went from not smiling to smiling. He, like, snapped. That was weird. Let me find an AoE domain. I don't know if there will be a great one. I'm also just gonna leave Venti off of any artifacts, because if I did that, if I put some artifacts on him, he would just kill everything with swirls too quickly. So, for the sake of showing off the team, he is naked. In any case, Emilie standing in Bennett Burst is gonna one-shot everything. What happened to your artifacts? Oh, yeah. Toma stole them. My bad. I just did that. The Air Fryer used to be, it was like Kazuha, Nahida, Bennett, and then just a 4th unit. It's just meant to trigger a lot of swirls, do some burning damage. Kind of goofy. It was a decent enough team at the time, but Emilie is just kind of, you know, come and blown it out of the water. And it's actually, I mean, the game has become a lot harder. Not harder. The enemies have gotten a lot more health, I should say. But now this is a unit who actually does damage in burning teams. So she just makes it a lot better. I actually don't know why I have Yanfei here, because I do just tend to on-field Emilie, so she gets more energy. Okay, well I let it go down. I need to see if I can find a better AoE domain. There are like 3 guys in here. Maybe we could do it here. It could work here. Also, shout out to my Discord, because I went to check my Discord, and because they were talking about Air Fryer, and I was like, oh my god, how did I forget about Air Fryer? I pulled Venti for this team. I talked about it in my original Emilie video. I'm a fraud.
Neutralize.
Actually, was this the era? Are these guys groupable? They are. And I'm gonna nuke, 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 nuke. Beautiful. Wonderful. Yeah, possibly the most one-note team because Venti just, he either does nothing or he invalidates content. And Emilie can make pretty good use of Venti. Strong grouping and archetype that is just meant to do a lot of swirl damage. And yeah, she doesn't care about your aura. She doesn't care about the aura on the enemy. She does damage as long as burning happens sometimes. I'm saying the same things that I said for the entire video, but that's because they're true and they're cool. And you should like Emilie for those reasons. I mean, I didn't even on-field the on-fade, but the reason that she's here is ranged pyro application, ranged AoE pyro application. It just fits very well with what the rest of the team has going on. Doesn't deal a lot of damage, but she's comfy and she can make the team work. Yeah, you know what? Why not? This will go at the end of the video. Why don't I just Giga Buff Emilie? Hyper Carry Emilie. Hyper Carry Air Fryer Emilie. This is the content that you get here. I just want to see big funny numbers out of her. And for the purposes of on-field Emilie, I can use Primordial Jadewing Spear because it has a passive. Ouch. Ow, 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 ow. Do I have enough attack on Eonson. I probably shouldn't be doing this right now. Look at that. Look at those ticks. I just saw a 95k off of her. Jesus. I guess I don't see why it wouldn't work. She has decent scalings. What if I tried this against Stygian? What if I did that? Can I on-field Emilie in difficulty 4? Venti doesn't really need to be here anymore. Who would be nice? Who would be nice? There's no one that I can really get to buff. No one really makes sense here. I don't know, maybe I just leave Venti as a dead slot there. I don't think I'm going to be able to clear if I have a unit that is doing nothing. But at least I'll see how far I can get. Venti really is just hanging out here. He's not doing anything. I didn't even see how much damage her normals were doing. Let's see this. Well, it's not going to work against him. Because he's pyro resist. Oh! 11,000 off my normals. Oh, I missed out. I could, like, actually realistically do this. Is the funny thing. Like, I'm on track to do this. I think this is about to run out. My lantern's about to run out. Yeah, there it goes. Oh, I should have E'd. If I had played that better, I think I definitely could have cleared that. I don't want to, like, grind this for a few hours or whatever. It probably wouldn't take hours. But it is funny that Harry Emilie works this well. Yeah, so I was watching my Stygian run back while I was editing, and I got annoyed with myself with how little I tried. So I went back, swapped out Venti for Xiangling, played a little bit better, and yeah, that was a very easy clear. I got it on my 3rd attempt, and the only reason that I didn't get it on my first 2 attempts is I wasn't paying attention and Eonson died. There we go. Now I cut to my outro. This is going to be so lovely and not confusing at all to edit. All right, now that I've sidetracked that much, let me get on to my next team. I'm like blanking now. What other teams do I play Emilie in? I swear it's a lot of them. Off the top of my head, I mentioned lyney Mono Pyro, but I know that people do basically the exact same team. Do I still have it together? People will essentially just do this team, but with Arlecchino instead of Lyney. Arlecchino doesn't have any particular synergy with burning like Lyney does, but she just does a lot of damage. And Emilie, with her whole burning thing going on, is also a very good pick against the boss I just fought, the Lava Dragon statue, which I maybe should have mentioned, because they're doing a lot of bosses with very specific mechanics. So having units that are good at beating certain bosses is like actually an upside now. I don't know, that feels like it goes more into the scope of talking about the boss than the character. But she can make a lot of teams a lot better at clearing that boss. Another character that I do not have, I was gonna look for her, but I don't have her. That's why I'm talking about her right now. It is Mualani. Like Emilie does with the rest of the vape and the melt stuff, she makes your team much better at keeping a pyro aura on enemies. And for Mualani, that matters a lot because she really wants to vape her damage. I mean, unless she's in Escoffier teams, you're not playing Emilie Mualani in a pyro unit with Escoffier. You could. Actually, that probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but actually that would probably be a decent team, come to think of it. Oh, that makes me upset, because Escoffier just does a ton of damage and gets melts, and she also still gets 10% Hydro and Cryo Res Shred. Yeah, maybe you are doing Escoffier, Emilie, Mualani, and a Pyro. In that case, you still want to vape Mualani's damage, because it's not a full Escoffier team. I've also seen Cloran teams that do very similar things to what my Cyno team did. Actually use Emilie for her Dendro application and only occasionally get burning going. I mean, at this point, I'm just kind of going through every unit. I'm saying this is how you could use Emilie with them, because Emilie's just a really flexible unit. You can do a lot of stuff with her. These are the archetypes that I play because these are the units that I have and these are the units that I enjoy playing. But she can slot into a lot of places and she asks very little of teams to be good. Maybe this actually will be shorter than the Sethos video. Maybe I just made myself look really stupid. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope y'all have a lovely day.
Would you mind coming with me to buy a copy of today's newspaper?
Oh, that's my favorite Emilie quote. We have to end the video with that.